was his frustration and specifically how he raced Larson and bumped Hamlin after the race, his own teammate, was that warranted given what happened to him in the closing laps?
Well, I guess it was called for. I mean, look, he had the whole race won. It was him and Larson leading all night long, and then you get down to it, and you get in one of the most unlikely places for us to finally snap this no overtime finish streak in the Cup Series at Richmond Raceway, where usually, like we started talking about, Ben, it usually is some spacing out, and someone will go on to win it very much uncontested because they've got a good gap and they can cruise their way to the finish. But just had that altercation there with Bubba and Kyle, and it was all chaos from there. And the sort of the jump start from Denny. Sure, Truex has every right to be frustrated there, but I think what was more surprising is just how much he did retaliate. We didn't really expect this much from Martin Truex Jr., and I don't think a lot of the other guys in the garage expected it either out of a longtime veteran to have such a reaction. But he definitely did let his feelings known. I'm glad NASCAR didn't go back and look at the restart as sketchy as it did look. I think it was good to leave it alone. But yeah, it was pretty wild there to see Martin Truex get a little unnerved there.
You know, I've never been a big fan of the restart zone, just generally speaking. I feel like the leader should be the control car and the leader should decide when to go. Obviously, Denny Hamlin, I think, was a little bit early on the gas, but then to me, when I watched the replay, it looked like Hamlin gained an advantage and then Truex caught up to him and they stayed pretty much where they were until they got into turn one. So I don't know if Denny realized that he jumped the start and then, backed off for just a half second and then started going again, or what happened. I haven't seen telemetry. I don't know if that's been made public yet. He certainly had some fun with it being April Fool's Day and claimed to admit to jump the start. And because of that, he was going to do the right thing and wish everybody a happy April Fool's. So go check out that tweet or post on X, I guess I should say, if you haven't seen it already. But I don't know if it necessarily made much of a difference in who won the race. I think the big difference was made on pit road. And I think it's a shame that we've spent the entire day talking about the restart rather than the great job that the number 11 team did in the pits to get Denny Hamlin in that position in the first place. You hate it for Martin Truex Jr., obviously, because he, like we said, had the race pretty much won, and then something out of his control bunches the field back up, and it creates an overtime restart. So you certainly feel for him. I don't know if it necessarily the attitude after the race. I think, we said this about Truex before in the past, right? He talks like Dale Earnhardt, but he races like Mark Martin. Like, you can say everything you want when you get out of the car and talk about how uncalled for things are and how you're tired of being raced that way. But, as much as I am not a fan of intentional wrecks at all or payback or anything like that, I would feel a little bit less annoyed by some of his comments sometimes if he actually stood behind his word and raced a little bit harder than he does. But, I think that's just who Martin Truex Jr. is at this point. That's who we've come to know him as throughout his entire career. And I can't say I'm too surprised by what we saw at the end of the race yesterday, last night there.
Yeah, absolutely. Denny Hamlin's team crushed it there in the pits, getting him 2 spots. That really sealed the deal in my mind. Like, okay, yeah, he's legitimately got a shot here to win. And come on, the Toyota Owners 400. We knew one of the Toyotas was probably going to have a good. Not saying that has anything to do with it, but Toyota decides to sponsor that race for a reason. They know that among Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., they've got a really good shot of getting a checkered flag, and they got it there with Hamlin. But yeah, I was also kind of amused of how Larson, when they told Larson about Truex's how upset he was and everything, Larson was like, "Yeah, I don't hold it against him. Like I know who he is. Like he's like, yeah, it's all cool. Like basically they were trying to start beef, and Larson's like, no, I mean I know he's probably upset, and I know he's like, I know Martin, once he sees this in the replays, he's going to kind of calm down a little bit.
Yeah, and credit to Bubba Wallace as well, because there was a video that Noah Lewis posted that I think NBC ended up reposting, and maybe Fox as well. He went straight up to Kyle Larson after the race and apologized, and the two of them, were very professional in how they handled that ordeal, which when you think back to Vegas a couple of years ago, I think was certainly a sign of growth and maturity on Bubba Wallace's part for sure. And again, I'm sure somebody out there is going to blow it out of proportion just because anytime those two get together, unfortunately, it's going to be a story one way or another. But I think given that the contact happened, the end result, what we saw with that conversation in the pits, probably was handled the best possible way it could be. So credit to both of them there. And like Bubba said, karma kind of came back to bite him in the pits, and Kyle Larson, meanwhile, ended up ahead of where he was before the contact even happened. So I guess you could say it all worked out in the end. Let's follow up with Truex here, talk about him a little bit more. Obviously, a good start to the season, but the frustration certainly showed last night. Do you think he's under pressure at all? You know, we've seemed to go through these rumors every year that he might be retiring. Toyota obviously has a lot of young talent in their development pipeline, and you know, we saw what happened with Matt Kenseth in the 20 car in 2017. Do you think that the pressure might be getting Martin Truex Jr. a little bit right now?
I really think so. And if you take a look at who won the Xfinity race on Saturday in the 81 of Chandler Smith, there's plenty in the Joe Gibbs camp that are going to need a ride here very soon if they keep showing their prowess. And one of those spots I think we all can kind of look at and circle is the 19 car. And Martin Truex Jr., we keep thinking like, okay, is this the year? Okay, is this the year? And it keeps going, no, we're going to keep on going. And eventually that's going to break. I don't know what it's going to take for Martin Truex to say, you know what, this is it. This will be my final time. And again, I didn't come in prepared knowing where his contract is right now. I don't know if it's a one more year extension or two or whatever they extended it to. But that's definitely got to be on your mind. That was already on my mind before you made a question today. And then when I saw it, I was like, yes, that's exactly what I was thinking about. And you bring up Matt Kenseth with the 20. I mean, from that same stable a few years ago, in retrospect, just being pushed out of your ride. Maybe Martin doesn't want to go, and maybe not coach, but someone else at JGR might be thinking, look, coach, we've got to get these guys fueled in, or we've got to get these drivers pushed up. And one of these lesser denominators has to move. But Martin Truex Jr., he hasn't had a bad year so far. I think he hasn't finished outside the top 10. You said he has 5 consecutive top 10 finishes. His worst was 15th, right? He hasn't had a bad year so far. So this story is far from over. We have to get through this year first to see where that lies. But definitely some pressure, because he could have had himself locked in, and now he doesn't. That's the final story, and it comes off something that wasn't his issue and became his issue, and just having it all unravel before him. That's really where it all just, it got in his head and had to let some of his frustration out. I get that. But we can't help but think there's some pressure there.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to pull up the results here. So 2 top 5s, 5 top 10s, all of those consecutive, and then Daytona 500 15th. That was his worst result of the year. So, yeah, like you said, hardly a bad year. But again, we'll pull the Xfinity results back up here real quick, and again, we'll get into that race a little bit later on here in the show. But look at the top 4 guys. I mean, you've got a Gibbs car in first, you got a Gibbs car in second. I'm sure Almirola is probably not a contender for a Gibbs Cup seat at this point in his career, but still a great run for him. Taylor Gray, career day in Xfinity in third, and then Toyota Gibbs related car with Sam Hunt Racing, Corey Heim. Obviously we talk about all that he's done in the truck series. He's got to be high on the Toyota prospect list. So, that 3 of those 4, I think for sure you have to look at, maybe not Cup ready next year for all of them, but in the future. We talk about how Toyota is really good at developing young talent, but not as good at holding on to it. I would think they would certainly hate to lose all 3 of these young drivers and young talents. And obviously, we have 2311 now. We have Legacy MC. There could be some opportunities for them in either of those teams with the factory support that Toyota is giving them. But when you think of Toyota in the Cup Series, you still think of Gibbs first, and Martin Truex Jr. is not getting any younger. So I'm sure that, he knows he's much closer to the end than the beginning. And I agree. I think sometimes, that it's hard not to let that pressure get to you, whether you realize it or not.